Good morning, everyone from Auckland. Let's see, are there people in the room? Yeah, we've got a few people in the room. That's brilliant. Thank you for choosing this this session. It's late in the day for you already, so it's very early for me. And Max is with me. He is from Berlin, and it's very late for him in Berlin. So we will do our best. My voice will warm up as we go, and if I raise my voice, it's because I'm trying to wake up or trying to wake up my voice. Thank you, and it's actually strange to sit here at the xAPI party and do a presentation. You'll hear a little bit of my history in the process. So I, about a month and a half ago, I contacted Max and I said, listen, we are both fans of this great tool called HypexAPI, and I want to create a template for xAPI. And he said, that looks like a great project. Let's do it. So now we are here. But before we're going to start, I'm just going to do introductions. I'm just going to click the most powerful button here at the bottom. Whoa, I need to go to my actual presentation. So there's the most powerful button at the bottom. As introductions, I am a project initiator, and I am an instructional designer in New Zealand. I've been an instructional designer for 2 years. We immigrated 2 years ago to New Zealand from South Africa. So before New Zealand, I ran an edtech company, or founded an edtech company, trying to make music education equitable in South Africa, which has unique challenges. And at that stage, I worked completely with Hype as an authoring tool for those 5-6 years. I didn't use any other tool. I didn't have a need for another tool. And I have a very strong multimedia background. I worked in broadcast for television broadcast for about 17 years as a director, line producer, and video editor. And I'm a musician. So I'm also going to ask Max if he can introduce himself to the party, if possible. Thanks, Max.
Hello, I'm Max Ziebell, and as Herman said, we know each other from the Hype forums, the product in question in this talk also, and yeah, I'm doing interactive design and programming since end of 90s. Started even earlier with some other kind of computing, but it has been a long journey and it has been fun. I was big into Flash when it was out for a while, and always kept liking to interactive design and tools that offer more than just raw programming. But I did a lot of programming in my days.
Cool. Thanks, Max. As I said, he is the brains in the outfit. I could say I'm the face, but he's more beautiful than me too. So that's not really true. So I'm clicking the most powerful button in online learning right right at the bottom. It's just an inside joke. But if you know what the most powerful button in online learning is, you can put it in the chat. I just want to go back before we start. I just want to say that there is a poll. If Jamie can put that poll online, I don't know, just to check whether the people in the room have had experience with Hype in the past. Excuse me. Morning phlegm getting out of the way. If you have used Hype in the past, I know I'm only starting, and I like working Hype, or if you are like are like Max and me, who are Hype fans, that would be great, just to get a feel for people's experience with Hype. Okay, so if we go back to our presentation, you can add your your responses in the poll. That would be great. So Max and I are not employed by Tumult, who develops Hype. We are Hype users. So the developers of Hype actually only heard about our project this week, and they are quite excited about it, which is really great. I have another confession to make. Although I've tried really hard over the years to make code like me, code does not like me. It really doesn't. I say every time I go to code, I say, listen, I'm sorry I messed up the last time. I want to come back, and then it lets me in, and then I break it, and then so I'm a no coder. I use code, but I am a no coder, and I'm saying that specifically because I'd like people to think that if I can do this, anybody can. And I'm going to mention that a few times during the presentation. Okay, so the most powerful button in online learning. Who can guess? Did anybody answer the question? What is the most powerful button in online learning? Messages. Nobody's answering the question. Okay, so the most powerful button in online learning is the next button. Just an inside joke. Okay, cool. So today's presentation is going to have a few topics. I'm going to first speak about why the Hype, and I'm going to try and give a bird's eye view of why Hype is a great tool. I'm not going to go into any details or specifics because we don't have time for that. Then we're going to look at the HypexAPI flow. And then we're going to have a look behind the scenes where Max has recorded a video. And then I'm going to do a demonstration of how cool it is to use xAPI in Hype. And then we hopefully will have a few minutes for feedback and questions at the end before Megan does her wrap up of today. Okay. Max is keeping his eye on the questions. I can't remember if I said that. If you have questions, please pop it in. In the question panel. Okay. So 3 things that make the Hype difference. I'm going to look at 3 things and throw a bonus one in there. So when I came from South Africa and I started working in New Zealand, I could not bring Hype with me into the company because I'm an immigrant and I can't just tell people in a new country what they're supposed to do. So I worked in Storyline, so I'm going to make comparisons. I worked for the last 2 years in Storyline and H5P. And when I needed to make the change and shift, and I'm completely fluent in Storyline or Articulate at this point in time, it was a little bit like being put in a straitjacket because Hype is a really, really flexible tool. And in Storyline, Articulate basically tells you how and what you can do. And Hype doesn't assume any of that. So I have to say, after working for 2 years, I got used to the fit of the straitjacket because human beings can normalize anything. And I even got a local artist to paint some wings on the back of my straitjacket, metaphorically speaking, obviously. So I am okay. I just have to say I'm okay with Storyline. I'm working in it, but I really hope that, and I really believe that Hype should be a tool in any learning team's tool set if they want to create really cool things in learning. Okay, so thing number 1 is Hype has a keyframe-based animation system, and me coming from a multimedia background, keyframes made sense to me. Here I am manipulating in a video 3 objects on a stage where I change its scale, position, rotation on a motion path, and I am creating keyframes on the fly and copying and pasting keyframes across. is really quick and easy. This video is played double speed, so it is. I'm not that fast. So if you can see the keyframe thing in Hype is really cool. It works well. So there we go. I've created some animation there. If we go to the next slide, excuse me a moment. Having scenes or slides in a project is nothing new. Storyline calls it slides. Hype calls it scenes. Where the difference comes in is that Hype works with symbols, where Storyline works with layers. The difference between Hype symbols and Storyline layers is that these symbols' position and scale can be adjusted and therefore can be animated. And that I've made their stroke dotted because you can call in and out of those symbols. The other really cool thing is that Hype has something called persistent symbols, and that is you can bring a symbol into different scenes. It takes all its stuff inside, its past, present, and future, right through the project or in the scenes that you would like that persistent symbol to be. It doesn't have to be there, but it defeats the object of having a persistent symbol. But you can take it through right through there, and the combination then with a third one is that it works with multiple timelines. In Storyline, you can have one timeline. I haven't worked lately with Captivate, but I think it's the same with Captivate. You have one timeline, a linear timeline to work with. In Hype, you have multiple timelines. And that's really important for me as a non-coder. Max will go and change states and do things with JavaScript that I can't. So it's really important for me as a non-coder, and timelines are really great. So these timelines can run independently of each other, and you can trigger events. You can run them forward, backwards, pause them. You can jump to places in timeline, but they can run independently. These timelines can also run interdependently. You can trigger timelines on the way and run conditions for those timelines, and you can also have timelines that run relative to each other. They're basically joined by the hip, meaning that if you change something in this timeline, it's directly affects something else on another timeline. And then as a bonus, it also has physics. And sometimes it's really cool playing around with physics. You can create games or something like that within Hype. That's really, who's mesmerized by those things falling off the side? I usually am. Okay, so we've looked at a keyframe-based animation, we've looked at symbols, and we looked at timelines. Okay, so when I design a piece of training, whether it's compliance training or anything else, I like to try and create a moment, obviously using best practice within instructional design of scenarios and knowledge checks and Gagne's 9 events, etc. But I try to find a moment where I can take all the about information and really connect it to some real experiential stuff. So, for example, if I had to teach you about the great white shark, I will try and find a moment. So I'll teach you about what it looks like, how it grows, what it eats, obviously not human beings, where it migrates, etc. But hopefully at some stage, I'll be able to put my learner in a shark cage in the open ocean, and then we take all that about information and we glue it to real experience. And that is the place where Hype really shines. So you can take a Hype object, an HTML object, and embed it in a storyline project, and break as many storyline rules as you can by creating a really immersive and interactive section for your course. Okay, so that is in a nutshell why I think Hype is a big deal. We all know xAPI is a big deal. That's why we are here. But I really think that Hype should be one of the tools in a learning team's set of tools. So then we're going over to the next section of the presentation, which is sending an xAPI statement to an LRS. I'm just going to explain the flow. Megan will be, and Jamie and or Torrance Learning will be really impressed with themselves, because some of my first exposures to xAPI was actually watching xAPI party recordings. And one of the videos that really made an impression on me was Kristen Torrance's video on ECD, evidence-centered design. And when I saw that, I said, yes, that's what I want to do with xAPI. And so when I thought of bringing xAPI into Hype, I had data stewardship in the back of my mind saying, okay, we cannot just create an extension for Hype. We really have to think about what the process is. And Jeff Blatt recently also released, from Learning Dojo, released a template for organizing xAPI data. Then you take all that information and you put it in a space in Hype that we call HypexAPI, and you take all that information and you put it into Hype. So for me, this is the brains of xAPI in Hype. So at the top, you have your LRS credentials. You have your default actor that you set up. And then you put all your verbs that you are going to use. You put them in the document, and then you add all your objects or activities into that document, and then you add all your results, and you put all of that in there, all your result sets, and the context that you are going to use. Also have a space for dynamic data, which makes xAPI and the Hype combination really powerful and easy to use. And then I have something at the bottom that I call the well. I really want that in the future, but that's where we take the data from the LRS. And in Hype, then you create an event, which is a button or a function, and you glue a verb and an object, and optionally a result and a context to that event. And when you trigger that event in Hype, a statement is sent to the learning record store. And that's it. That's what it is. It's really simple, but beautiful, I hope. So we will show you what that looks like in the demonstration. So now behind the scenes, so I'm going to show you a video from Max, who's going to, a 10-minute video from Max, who's going to take you through what it actually a little bit looks like behind the scenes, and the JavaScript logic tied to the whole thing together. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. This is Max from Germany. It's late here. I'm happy to be part of this presentation, and I want to show you a little bit behind the scenes from our project. So we wanted to integrate Hype to Multi-Hype Pro with the xAPI syntax, and make it as convenient as possible for the users of this ecosystem. It's a Mac system, Mac exclusive app, but has a dedicated following. And this project originated from the forums, and I hope you like it. So let's go and look at behind the scenes. So as it currently stands, you can export Hype content directly to Hype HTML5, embed it into a page, and you can also hard-code some xAPI wrapper calls into your Hype content. But as most Hype users live exclusively in their Hype ecosystem, we wanted to create a bridge. So our code is mostly a kind of glue code. So let me introduce you to some of the concepts behind it. As I mentioned, most users live in Hype, preview the app, they are currently working on. That opens a browser. They quickly check if everything is working fine. So we thought, why not create this glue code that offers the possibility to use HypexAPI to communicate through Hype directly with the xAPI using the graphical user interface. There is no stopping you from also directly addressing the xAPI wrapper, so you have the best of both worlds. Most users will call our code through the graphical user interface. This is a portion that Herman is going to be or went already into detail. I'm more here to explain the background on the JavaScript side. So in Hype, there's this concept of Hype functions. And the Hype function, the only difference between regular JavaScript is they have a fixed signature. So you get three things passed into your Hype function. It's the Hype document, the element, and the event. I'm not going to go into detail about element and event. Just let me say they are context-sensitive values based on where you click or where you call the function. The Hype document is the interesting part for us now here in this presentation. It is the Hype API. It contains all the commands that are necessary to run Hype from a JS perspective. So you would call a Hype function related to, you would call it through the syntax Hype document dot start timeline named, in this case, to start a timeline or continue a timeline. There is a whole bunch of them. You can look them up online. It's very well put together documentation out there. What we're interested in is one special key that Tumult has put into the Hype API. It's the Hype custom data. It's just some basic JS object, but it's a convenient place to put your data because it's passed into every Hype function and scoped locally to your Hype document. And that's a place users are already used to putting the data. So a regular user would create his Hype app, build the interaction logic inside of the application and store values in custom data. So we have a bunch of variables and this lookup kind of principle store lookup. We wanted to generalize this and glue it together with the xAPI. And so as we also have lookups in xAPI, we can define through HypexAPI standard look keys in our lookups. So we have default actors, default objects, default verbs, and we can address them with single keys and reuse them across our app. And we added the benefit that the variables we have set in our application state can be actually embedded into your lookups used into statements. So this is why we're calling it a live lookup. So let's have a look. Setting up one of those lookups is pretty easy. As you can see in the syntax, you just basically set the default, the name of the lookup, and the object containing all the keys. So in case from verbs, this is probably very familiar for all of you. You would set up your verb here, in this case, a custom verb, my verb. And there is also, in this special case of verbs, there is a fallback logic. So if you address a verb like my verb and or existing one from the known ones, and it's not found in your lookup, it falls back onto the ADL verbs. In the other cases of the lookups, there is no such functionality, but I just wanted to mention it quickly. So let's have a look at how you can define keys in those lookups. So this is a pretty basic static key. So I don't think I have to explain much. You define a key and you put a value in it. And you can also define a key as a function. So the upside of that being you can have dynamic values, and they are evaluated at the moment you send a statement. So the moment you send it to the learn record system, it will be reduced to key equals value, because the return value is value here in this case. You can use any kind of calculation in here. That's the benefit. You can also have a much shorter notation, the arrow notation, more modern, but it's up to your taste. Either works. So this notation we are seeing here is something you would have inside of your application in Hype when you're writing it. You can obviously also use the graphical user interface to set this data, but I'm showing you the JavaScript portion. So inside of a hide function, you can define a user called Max and the custom data. And then in your store, you can kind of address this user and put it into your statements. So this variable user will be replaced the moment you send it this data to your learn record system. And if in between send statements you change the user in the custom data with a call like this, and let's say you put him, you set him to Moritz, the next time you send your statement, there will be a new value in here. So a custom data you set in the app can be also more complex. It's no problem. You can have object instead of a string. So in this case, we have the keys name, surname, town. And how do you address those in your store? So very simple. You just use a dot syntax. You can also use brackets, square brackets to address arrays, and there's much more to go into, but this is beyond the scope of this little presentation. You can let's take more this sorts of real life example in a Hype application. Now you have the state, you're updating, you're fetching data from it, you're displaying it on the stage, on the screen, you're using it, and once you're finished, you want to send the results to the store. You can now have a live store that actually is custom made for this. So you basically create some kind of lookup, and the lookup has the benefit that it offers the functionality to have functions. In this case, it's an arrow notation. Okay, so we're the first command in this function would be to fetch our data, hide custom data, and then we are comparing if in our current state of our application, the user choice is actually equal to the correct choice. So as we can see, this would result in a value of true or false, and this completed would be set automatically the moment we send the statement. I hope I could show you a little bit what we're doing here, and I hope you like our ideas, and it's pretty much still very much in development. So if you have any suggestions, please feel free to send them to us. And yeah.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. There we go. Okay, so before Max spoke to us about the background and the JavaScript, I said it's really simple, and I said that because I'm a no-coder, and I'm going to show you why it is really simple to use the extension. And for that, I'm going to have to unshare for a moment. And because I'm going to unshare my tab, and then I'm going to reshare because I need to share my screen. Sorry if you see us here. I'm going to quickly jump to Hype. Can everyone see my screen? I hope so. Where am I here? Not that one. I want this one. Cool. Okay. Just let me, I want to see, Jamie, did you send something? Yes, we can see. Excellent. Okay, cool. So here we are. It's really simple. We take this document up here, the HypexAPI document. We write all our xAPI data in here, and we just tie it to buttons and events in Hype. So in your Hype document, just look up at the right top. The things that you do have to have in here, you have to have your xAPI wrapper that is loaded in the head of the document, as you can see at the bottom, include in document head. And you have, that is the brains, the hypexapi.js file in the resource folder is the brains of this extension. The other thing that I just need to say up front is Max has designed an export script for Hype for xAPI, which means we have access to these 3 extra button clicks here, which makes it really simple for people like me to use the extension. So just go quickly. So here, up here is the endpoint credentials. This is where you set up your default actor. You can set up other actors as well, but that would be an outlier. You don't always, very seldom, I think, change actor midway of a project. Here we've got a few verbs set up. So we've got the verbs section here, and then we've got launched, played, paused with its details. So in Hype, we just call launched, and the code takes care of the rest. We have objects or activities here. I just have 2 set up, first scene and knowledge check 1. In here, I just want you to take a quick quiz here, like video name, that is a variable. And that really becomes powerful when you have 10 videos in your project, in that you don't have to have 10 played verbs in there. So we've got objects. We've got 2 result sets in here. You can see in this one, I only have a response, which will be a text one that I'll show you, a string that we are going to populate there. And then we have a result with a score raw scaled completion. And we have these functions in here, which we will update dynamically from the UI. And then we have one context set up to fly to the moon in here with a lady called Irene Moonwalker. Then we have the dynamic data bit. So you've seen the bit that Max spoke about here. So this, because I'm the way how my head works with these type of projects, I'd like to know what I'm going to change before I change it and set it up so that, so in here, I've just passed in some default values or starting values for the different variables that is I'm going to use in here. So we've got kcheck, we've got video name, we've got success, which is here, we've got scaled, which is there, we've got raw data, which is there, and we've got the response variable. I'm running out of time. Okay, cool. I have to be quick. So how to send a statement is you say on mouse click send statement. You said launched and first seen. So I'm just going to quickly show you how that works. When we're in here, I'm going to open my console. I'm not going to show you. It does go through to Watershed, but maybe I must show you quickly. So if we send a statement, when it comes in the console, it is echoing back from the learning record store. Okay, so we know it's been sent, so it's going to update to refresh. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so it's been sent. So that's how easy it is to send a statement. In here, we are sending a completed verb, which is not declared in here. I just want you to see it's here. It's not declared in here, but it's part of the ADL verbs in the xAPI wrapper. So that will be sent. Knowledge check 1, my result, fly to the moon as a context. And then we have a variable that we are setting in the UI, which is really cool. so the variable that we're updating is kcheck1, and we're changing it to question. We're putting it into question 1. So I will show you that if I type something in here in the browser, that will go through, and I will submit it. So if I view that, and I open up hide, let me hide that, and I open that. When I send my statement, it have grabbed the completed verb from the xAPI wrapper. We've got question 1 there that has been updated from the variable, and we've got result, and currently it is an empty or undefined empty string here in the result. So if I type something in here, it is fun being here, and I submit that, and I run the statement, you will see it is fun being here. The response variable is updated. So that is that one. I'm going to go quickly to this one. So in here, we also have another option in here that says run expression. And so you run a basic JavaScript expression. This is great for knowledge checks. So on this one, you add 5 to raw. In here, you subtract 2 from raw. And in here, you can multiply as well. You can do basic maths in here, and we console logging the raw scores. Just quickly show you set scale score here. So this is a number variable that's being updated, and this is a Boolean being updated in here. So if we go there, I'm just going to show you how that works. So I'm just going to open the console here so that you can see. So if I add raw score, so raw was 0, now it's 5. It's changing to 3, and then it's changing to 6. I'm going to set the scale score, set the Boolean, and then I'm going to send a statement, and that will echo back. So now success is true. Scaled is 0.74, and the new raw score is 6. Really easy to use. So the next one is this now. So because I'm not a coder, I really lean on timelines. So in this here, a concept in Hype, let me rephrase this. In Hype is, one of the concepts in Hype is custom behaviors. So it's like we are sending like a macro, a string of things happening one after the other. So you just call this custom behavior called failed. So before you call it, you pass success as false, and if you've got a one called passed, and you pass success as true, and it sends the statement after that. So here I've set up a timeline. So if it's red, it will send failed, false, and if it's green, it will send passed. And the way I do that here is conditional statement. I just say if the timeline called past is greater than 0.5, it will go past, and if not, failed. So this is really, really cool. So if I open here, so it's supposed to be false. So success is false here. If I move the timeline to the right, and I send the statement, success will update to being true. So you can set up conditional statements in Hype like that, which is, I say that the whole time, but I think it's great. Okay, so I'm not going to go to this one because we are running out of time. This is just one of the, just have a quick way. The other way of sending statements is by putting it into the HTML attributes, and then just running a JavaScript called send statement by data set, which is up here, if you run that function. Okay, so I'm going to step back, and this was a lot, I know, but this is really powerful, and Hype is a really flexible tool. I'm going to stop sharing Are there any questions that we could answer, or I can't see any questions. Is there anything anybody wants to ask about Hype to clarify, or I'm new to Hype. Wow, I found the thing, really. I really wish Storyline had this flexibility. Matt, I agree 100% with you, because I work with Storyline every day. Did I see your API credentials in the JS code? Yes, you did. That's awesome. That's good. I'm on mute. Yeah, I was on mute. Sorry about that. The next button. Ah, Megan, you got the next button. Brilliant. Excellent. Okay. That's good. Okay. So anybody else? So I really, I've said this a few times, Hype really fits in well within the ecosystem of a learning team. Matt asked, are there ways of wrapping the Hype output to be an xAPI package? I do not know. I think, Matt, maybe if you mean by an xAPI package, do you mean I haven't considered that, because Hype is an HTML. We haven't looked at that. If we can look at that in the future, maybe we can. I don't know if that is something that we want to consider, because Hype is an open tool, and you need to be able to use Hype for what it is. We can take that to the drawing board. I thought putting credential there isn't best practice. Since then, they're exposed. We'll have to see. It's minified. So the other way, Bruce, that one can do that, if I can quickly show you, I can remove this. I'm just going to delete it. No, it's not the right one. If I delete it, I can delete it. And when I delete it, because the xAPI credentials has to sit somewhere. And if you know how to find it, you know how to find it. This xAPI wrapper actually has credentials baked into it from Veracity. So if I do this, and I'll show you, it will send the statement. But there it is. But it hasn't gone through to Watershed. It hasn't gone through to Watershed. It did go through to Veracity. There it is, 16 seconds ago. So if you don't want to put it in there, you won't be able to see it once you've exported it. It's minified. And I think if anybody wants to find data somewhere, they can. You can't hide it forever. Okay, for anyone who wasn't tried Hype, it's awesome, and I think a game changer. The forum is incredibly friendly. That is true. I just want to put that out there. I wouldn't be half the user of Hype if it wasn't for people like Max, Mark, Daniel, Jonathan, Fotex. I know them all by name because they are friends for me in the forums, and they are really, really, really cool. As you can see, I think Hype is a cool tool for learning design. Okay. Cool. Daniel, you here? Cool. Excellent. Good to see you. Okay, so I think the session is going to end. Thank you, Jamie. We will, I think, wrap up today's xAPI party with the next session. Thank you very much, everyone. It was quite a thing to be here.
Thank you for listening.